Coming up on Network Africa. The WHO says Africa to get at least 220 million doses for COVID-19 once a vaccine is approved. Protesters in the Democratic Republic of Congo rally in support of Denis Mukwege, the Congolese Nobel laureate who's been receiving death threats in recent weeks. Plus, Mali's military leaders visit ousted President Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta in hospital. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Teniola Shoboale. The World Health Organization says that once a COVID-19 vaccine is approved, Africa will get at least 220 million initial doses. The first batch is expected to go to frontline health care workers and vulnerable groups, and the distribution will be based on the population of each country. WHO Africa Program Area Manager Richard Mihigo says all 54 countries had expressed interest in a COVID-19 vaccine. The Global Vaccine Initiative, called COVAX, intends to help purchase and fairly distribute 2 billion doses of approved vaccines by the end of 2021. Meanwhile, the head of the Africa Centers for Disease Control, Dr. John Nkengasong, says all nations should join the WHO initiative to fairly distribute potential vaccines.
Yes. We are in this together. No country will be safe if any other country in the world still has cases of COVID. So it's in the interest of the whole world for us, as we deal with this generational crisis, to be sure that vaccines are not only accessible to the continent, but accessible in a timely fashion.
By pulling together not only the demand, but also to pull together the buying power of a member. This is a global initiative. And from the African continent in particular, as we have heard from Honorable Minister, high income and middle income countries have agreed to self-finance the vaccines.
In the meantime, the World Health Organization is not expecting widespread vaccinations against COVID-19 until the middle of next year. WHO spokesperson Margaret Harris says none of the candidates' vaccines in advanced clinical trials so far has demonstrated a clear signal of efficacy at the level of at least 50% sought by the organization.
In terms of realistic timelines, we're really not expecting to see widespread vaccination until the middle of next year. This phase 3 must take longer because you need to see how truly protective the vaccine is. You also need to see how safe it is. You need to understand whether there are things that there are earlier phases. You do look at safety, and you look at safety very, very carefully before you go into the phase 3. But you need to be following safety at all stages. So that makes it a longer process.
The authorities in Ethiopia have launched a mobile service which allows people to receive their coronavirus test results through an SMS. The Ethiopian Public Health Institute says the results are expected to be available 3 hours after one is tested. A short code 8335 will be used to send notifications with the results. The country has so far conducted over 970,000 lab tests for the coronavirus. Ethiopia currently has over 55,000 confirmed cases of COVID-19, with over 20,000 patients having recovered and 856 fatalities from the virus. Mozambican health authorities are expressing concern over the rising COVID-19 cases and the growing number of people going to hospital. According to the National Deputy Director of Public Health, Beningana Machine, the health system could be saturated by the trend. Dr. Machine said it was time to increase preventive measures as she believes that there are many people infected with COVID-19 traveling around the country. The country on Thursday recorded an additional death from the virus, bringing the total number of fatalities to 26. There was an additional 90 positive cases of COVID-19, bringing the number of people infected by the virus to 4,207. Animals could be vital in the fight against the coronavirus, as the University of Namibia's School of Veterinary Medicine is training dogs to detect the disease. The plan is to deploy the dogs at airports and borders because, according to veterinarians, the mammals have proven to be 95% accurate at detecting coronavirus. According to local media, that the project started 2 months ago, but it does not say when the dogs will be ready. It also adds that this is the first African country to use dogs to sniff out COVID-19. To other stories now, a city in eastern Congo is rallied in support of Denis Mukwege, the Congolese Nobel laureate who received death threats in recent weeks after he called for justice over serious human rights violations in the country. On Thursday, his supporters snaked through the streets of Bukavu at the lakeside home of the doctor, who has helped thousands of survivors of sexual violence, honking motorcycle horns, singing and waving signs like "Don't touch our Nobel Prize."
Supporters of Congolese Nobel laureate Denis Mukwege rallying through the streets of Bukavu. They are calling for adequate protection for the doctor who has helped thousands of survivors of sexual violence after he came out to say he had received a series of death threats. Honking motorcycle horns, singing and waving signs like "Don't touch our Nobel Prize." Demonstrators marched by the lakeside home of Dr. Mukwege in eastern Congo.
Now you see, Mukwege put all the effort to help women, gave them food and dressed them and took care of all the expenses. We, the women, will not like to see Mukwege being destroyed. We do not want to see this. They should give him his peace.
Mukwege has won international recognition, including the 2018 Nobel Peace Prize for his decade of work treating female victims in the eastern part of Democratic Republic of Congo. Last week, the United Nations said his life was in danger after he and his family received death threats via social media and by phone.
It's essential those responsible are brought to justice and that the truth is known, both as a means to protect Dr. Mukwege's life, but also as a deterrent to others who attack, threaten, or intimidate medical workers and human rights defenders.
Alongside his medical work at Panzi Hospital in Bukavu, Mukwege has long been an advocate for persecuting armed groups responsible for the endemic sexual violence in eastern Congo. The marchers are now calling on the government to protect Mukwege, who narrowly survived an assassination attempt in 2012.
Now, the leader of the military junta that ousted President Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta has visited him at a hospital where he was being treated. AFP news agency reports that the military leader, Assimi Goïta, and his delegation said the former Mali leader was free to seek further treatment abroad if need be. Mr. Keïta was admitted at the private hospital after a mini-stroke. However, the former president is said to be recovering well and was released to go home on Thursday evening. Mr. Keïta was detained by military leaders that ousted him on the 18th of August for 10 days. French President Emmanuel Macron is to meet his Côte d'Ivoire counterpart, Alassane Ouattara, in Paris. Mr. Ouattara's decision to run for a third term as president in October's elections has sparked tension and protests in the country. He had initially ruled out running for re-election, but reconsidered following the death of his preferred successor, Prime Minister Amadou Gon Coulibaly, who had been nominated by the ruling party. However, his opponents say a third-term bid is unconstitutional. On returning from Paris, electioneering is to begin in full swing as Mr. Ouattara has a state visit to the Moronu region from the 9th to the 12th of September. At the same time, the Constitutional Council will pronounce on his candidacy within 15 days and also confirm the list of 44 candidates that have applied for the president. South Africa's power utility Eskom has introduced stage 4 power cuts this week, crippling challenges with generation units at 10 of its power stations and cold weather. That's according to Eskom in a statement. Despite getting bailouts from government, the parliament has heard Eskom's financial situation that has gross debt worsened to $27.3 billion as of March of 2020, almost 11% higher than a year before. The state-owned power company also suspended the managers of 2 of its biggest generating plants. This action was taken because of sustained poor performance by these plants. Economists believe the situation is likely to get worse in the next months.
I think Eskom continues to be a problem child. You know, there is this big elephant in the room. And as we've seen, that the guys, number one, if you look at their debt, increased by almost 48 billion. I mean, it moved from 440 to 488 billion. And that confirms to you that as long as Eskom continues to spend more than they're collecting, this situation is not going to be resolved. And yes, for our economy to grow, as long as we are not sorting out Eskom, then we are going nowhere. And yes, companies are right to complain about them because you need supply of electricity, and not just supply, but you need a reliable source of supply because you plan ahead. You are a manufacturer or a mining company, even people who are in the services industry. Because what it also does, if you don't have reliable electricity coming from the likes of Eskom, then it starts increasing the cost of doing business for you as a business because you have to go and get alternative power somewhere. And as things stand now, it doesn't come out cheap. So we need to make sure that the Eskom thing has to be sorted. But it's worrisome because this issue has been with us for years and it's the same old story.
The captain of a tanker that rescued 27 migrants at sea, including a pregnant woman, is calling for immediate help as conditions worsen on board after a month anchored off the coast of Malta have been denied entry by several countries. The captain says the migrants have no critical physical issues, but mentally the situation is getting desperate. The migrants were rescued exactly 1 month ago from a wooden dinghy that had been at sea for days and sank immediately after the rescue operation.
Unfortunately, the frustration of these people is rising day by day. They're anxious to disembark, they're anxious to get in touch with their loved ones and families. They just simply want to step ashore.
Now, a 22-member Interreligious Advisory Committee has been inaugurated here in Nigeria in Kaduna State as part of the government's efforts to find peace following the ethnic religious conflicts that have engulfed the southern part of the state. Known as Kaduna House Family, the committee comprises leaders of the Muslim and Christian faith who are to work together to promote peaceful coexistence.
The frequency of ethno-religious violence in Kaduna State, northwest Nigeria, in the last 40 years has affected peaceful coexistence, development and public finances. These crises are often triggered by what's described as mundane issues by individuals or groups at the local level and consequently turns into a full-blown conflict. In this chamber of the Kaduna State Government House are selected Muslim and Christian leaders who are being inaugurated as members of the Kaduna House Family, a platform for religious leaders to dialogue and work together to achieve peace. Governor Nasir El-Rufai is seeking their support to ensure that the conduct of the people mirror the message of peace and compassion as preached by the major religions.
We have to work together to ensure that widespread adherence to faith translates into a broad constituency for peace, upheld by people whose faith in God also helps them to be better citizens.
For the religious leaders, it's another call to serve as they condemn violence of any form which contradicts the teachings of faith.
We need to mobilize our people. We need to stop this animalistic behavior.
They call for courage on all sides to address the root of conflicts, while pledging to make the necessary sacrifices to ensure a return of peace.
They are fighting over land. So I think the government can come here and divide the land according to the population, according to how much they inherited. If the governor can do this, inshallah, you hear that there will be absolute silence in that area.
In the meantime, the Judicial Commission of Inquiry into the crisis in Kajuru, Kachia and Chikun local government areas has submitted its report to Governor El-Rufai. The commission was constituted by the government in April 2019 with a mandate to identify the circumstances leading to communal clashes from 2017 till date. The governor promises to look into the report of the commission with a promise to work with its recommendations.
Welcome to our Africa Tech segment. As countries continue to respond to the ongoing crisis, it has become more important that youth are empowered with the skills they need to benefit from new employment opportunities in the digital economy. Analysts say the COVID-19 pandemic made the shift to digital apparent, and so taking advantage of digital technologies and skills will help youth leverage online education and employment opportunities. Joining us now is Emeka Obia, a marketing strategist, to discuss more on this. Thank you so much for joining us on Network Africa.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
In your opinion, how prepared do you think youths are for the shift to digital work?
Well, I think it's really beyond preparedness, because the reality today is we find ourselves in a world that is going fully digital. And what I mean by that is the world has moved from back when it used to be, we used to live in communities, social interactions used to be together. The world has transcended beyond then to now, where digital technology has sort of enabled the way that we live our lives. So I think for young people, the technology is there. A lot of youth are aware of these technologies, and some are already using these technologies. But most importantly is the how they can best leverage these technologies for better. But in terms of awareness, a lot of people are already aware of these technologies. I mean, already we have about over 160 million mobile phones in Nigeria. And even within that number, you have about 83% that are smartphones. So you have a lot of these young people who are connected, more than ever. So I think one of the most important things will be the next level, which is how can that connection become more meaningful for you, and then you create value with that connection and that access.
So what you're saying is that young people are aware, but would you say they have the right skills, or do they have access to the right skills that can help them access new employment opportunities?
Yeah, so access to the right skills is where the opportunities lie. As much as a lot of young people, the mindset has sort of shifted to, optimism, to more capabilities. So you have a lot of young people who are more open to learn and more willing. In terms of the skills required, there's a huge opportunity to both reskill and to upskill, because as these skills are evolving, it's important that a lot of young people, a lot of the youthful population understand the skills that are really important. I would not say that they already have the skills, but I would say that there's an opportunity out there with the learning platform that are available now. A lot of technology companies are investing so much resources, even free in some cases, to ensure that these skills are being delivered. So I think it's really the knowledge, having the knowledge about what is available, and then knowing what exactly to go for and what exactly to learn. But the access is there, even though we can't say in total in terms of the penetration from, looking at the country at large. but essentially it's really to look out for what opportunities that are there to reskill and to upskill.
How would you know, a lot of people say digital technology is the future, and there are a lot of young people in the sector, but how do we encourage more young people to get involved and learn these skills?
Yeah, so the interesting thing about it is even more young people, the bulk of the encouragement to learn these skills even come from this same young people, right? Because the world has become a global village. The boundaries are blurred, right? So you sit in your house in Port Harcourt or in Lagos or wherever, and you have access to what young people are doing all over the world. You have young people who are creating content, from their location, in some village, and that content is going viral all over the world. So I think that young people are also inspiring themselves and opening, the eyes of other young people to see these opportunities that are out there. Technologies like social media, for example, on social media, people are able, which is where you hear the concept of FOMO, which is popular among these young people, which is the fear of missing out. So there's already that willingness, but I think it's constant education then becomes really critical and important here, especially what to know and also how to use it. Again, how people can use it will be different, right? For me, if I understand social media, for example, the way I can use it for my benefit might be entirely different from the way the other person can use it. So I think the important thing is letting people see the opportunities that exist within these technologies and then inspire them to sort of use it in a way that will help them create value.
All right, then, marketing strategist Emeka Obia, thank you so much for joining us on Network Africa. It's been a very interesting discussion.
Thank you for having me.
Well, he looks every bit the traditional Lesotho sheep herder, wrapped in a blanket to ward off the Mountain Kingdom's cold. But since establishing himself in 2015, singer and rapper Teboho Mochoha has gone beyond his home country's folk farmer music, whose staple is an accordion with a single drum, to produce an electric sound mixing dance, dub reggae and rap. This has enabled him to captivate audiences outside his native Lesotho, including in venues in Paris, Oslo and Cape Town. He's just been signed to record an EP by a South African label. And on that note, that's where we end the program. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Teniola Shoboale. Have a lovely weekend.